Welcome to Health, Wellbeing and Lifestyle, where experts in the field inform, educate and inspire the community to be healthier, more balanced and live the lifestyle they love. Our first guest today, Anthony Kilner, is a psychic medium and author, and the topic we'll be discussing is how dreams help us in everyday life. Welcome, Anthony.
Thanks for having me, Megan.
So, Anthony, what is a dream and why is it important?
Everybody dreams. Animals dream. People have been dreaming for centuries. And a dream is a message that comes down from your soul collective. So it's the sum of all your souls together through what we call the superconsciousness to our subconsciousness. And then we have that dream during the night or during our sleep state. So it doesn't have to happen just at night. And then that comes to our consciousness and we have to interpret that. And the way we interpret that is, if we have subjective, it means it needs interpretation, and that's what a dream is based around. If it's objective, it's real. And so where we look at what happens with a dream is, it comes through as a message, and it'll be quite often muted in colour. For older people, I normally say it's like a black and white cartoon on a colour TV. It's muted. You tend to watch it rather than be a part of it. And it's a message for you to help you to move forward. So why it helps you in everyday life is being able to interpret that message. And people like Sigmund Freud and Jung all specialised in trying to work out what these interpretations were and are and how they can then help the person. And sort of skipping forward, we just have a broader interpretation now because there's so many more distractions in our lives. So there's so many more things in our minds that the message can work with. So how it helps us in our everyday life is it gives us an understanding of what's happening around us. And so we take that understanding and we change our lives accordingly, and then of course that dream will go away. The part of that that's really important to note is that we have to interpret what it means to get the best out of it. So for example, you have a dream where you see yourself driving along a road. You can't quite see the colour of the car, but let's say it's blue. And you get a sense that it's blue. And you're driving along the road and you go off the road and then it gets rougher and rougher and you start climbing up a mountain and you get to the top of the mountain and in the distance you can just see the sun coming up. And you think, wow, what does all that mean? You know, it's a bit interesting. So what it really means is, in the person's direction, represented by the vehicle, there's a lot of communication issues that are coming up for them, represented by the blue of the vehicle. Going from the smooth road to the rough road means that there's going to be a situation in their life that requires some really good, solid interpretation and communication with to help them get to the top of the hill. When they get to the top of the hill and they see the sunrise coming up, then what that means is that they've got there, they've done the work, everything's getting better, and from there on in it's a lot smoother. So it's all those little things like that. Now it can also, in a dream, you might see yourself with a loved one or with family and friends, and so you have to interpret what does that mean. And quite often, instead of it being the family or the friends, it means aspects within yourself need to be addressed. So for example, you might have a dream where your mum's there and your mum's telling you to cook this food in a specific way, and there's a lot of anger around it and pots going everywhere. It's not your mum as such. It is her energy that you hold within you and about how you are looking after yourself on a nutritional level, and that the anger and frustration that's within you is showing and coming out, and you need to let that come out and look after yourself properly. So it's really quite intricate. In the more detail you get, the more you can actually interpret to help you to move forward in life.
What happens when we have a reoccurring dream and how can we change that?
Reoccurring dreams, Megan, are really interesting because it means the person's not understanding the message that they're getting from their original dream. And so it keeps getting worse and worse and worse until we actually take note of what that dream is. And so the way to deal with them is really interesting, because we quite often, people will say to me, oh, they've remembered the same dream over and over and over and over again. Well, that's their soul telling them they have to change, and most people get to a point they don't want to change. So the dream gets nastier and nastier. The really good thing about how to deal with them is take note of all the details in that dream, see how it works in your life, and then make a change. And once you make that change, the dream quite often goes away. It might lessen down because you've only made part of the change. It really, if we're talking about our soul collective giving us those messages, that's because they've got our best interests at heart. And if everything was all beautiful and fluffy and light, we'd never change. So it has to get graphic, because otherwise people aren't going to take any notice of it. And that's the way to deal with it.
What tips can you offer for our viewers in terms of them looking at their own dreams?
Well, there are quite a few tips we can really suggest. The first one is go to bed with a pen and paper. As soon as you wake up or you come back from that dream, write down as much detail as possible. Because when it comes to interpreting that information, the more detail, the more accurate a person can work it out. All right, so that's the first big tip. The second tip I say to people is to be open to what's coming through and then establish sort of the differences. And so to do that, you need a really good book or reference material that explains what does a house represent, what does a car represent, what are all the different aspects of things subjectively and how they're interpreted, even down to colour. So good reference material, good dream interpretation book will make a big difference. The last tip would be to go and see somebody that specialises in dream interpretation, because there is a big difference between dreaming and astral travel. And so a good interpretation will tell you, oh, that was that, this is the dream, this is how to get yourself back on to track with the right information. And that's probably the most important thing. If you can't work it out yourself, go and see someone that can help you. That will help you get your life back on track.
Thanks, Anthony. That's such great information. If you'd like to know more about Anthony Kilner and how dreams help us in our everyday lives, please go to his webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. And after the break, we have another interesting guest with another interesting topic. Stay tuned. After the break, Jacqui Grant, an NDIS business consultant and empowerment coach, will be discussing the 3 fundamentals for a healthy working environment for neurodiverse people. Welcome back. Our second guest today is Jacqui Grant. She's an NDIS business consultant and empowerment coach. And the topic we'll be discussing today is the 3 fundamentals for a healthy workplace environment for neurodiverse people. Welcome, Jacqui.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Jacqui, please list for us the 3 fundamentals for a healthy workplace environment for neurodiverse people.
In the workplace, so many people who are neurodiverse or have neurodivergent traits, it comes with a lot of challenges. So one of the first things is that they are understood, like really understood for what they require as an individual. Number 2 is that the work environment is willing and able to support them. So for example, for some people, feeling overstimulated. It can be such a challenge with too many lights, too much noise. It can be quite distracting. For some people, dyslexia is a problem, but they can still do their job. They just require maybe voice to text to help them as a spell check, little things like that. As that continues to be evolving, like so some days traits are really good, like for example, hyper-focused, got the job done. Other days, nope, can't remember what those instructions were 5 minutes ago. Got part of it, but not all of it. So as a workplace creates those changes for the person, and they don't have to be expensive, the person can feel more comfortable and engaging in their job, and importantly, enjoy their job, which helps them to mask less, helps them to increase their energy and be a big part of the team. And the third thing is that they are having some allowances for those times when they're just not coping. For example, if they're triggered with what is commonly known as a meltdown. So it could just be going into overwhelm and needing to be able to walk away, going to a quiet place, being able to get up and leave their workstation to have that time out. Could be a walk around the park, it could be a walk outside, it could simply just taking some time away from everybody to feel calm, centered and grounded.
How does understanding the individual help?
So when it comes to being neurodiverse, everybody's unique, just as everybody's unique that's neurotypical. In the workplace though, if you understand each individual's requirements who are neurodiverse, and we focus on that more because it can be very overwhelming and confronting for the person who has neurodivergent traits. So when you understand as an employee, as well as the manager, as well as the co-worker, that your person that you work with has these uniqueness, these traits that they may need to follow. For example, for some people who have both ASD or on the autism spectrum and ADHD, some days they like to follow the rules and they understand exactly where everything is. But on other days, ADHD is a bit more at play, so that hyperactivity, that spontaneity, and it's like, no, there's too many steps to go from looking for a file, for example. By understanding that as a manager, you have a staff member that needs to make adaptations as to where to find that file or that information, can make their job so much easier, which in turn makes your job so much easier. So understanding each individual's requirements makes the workplace much better, not just for that individual, but for everyone else. And then as part of that, productivity can go up, more likely that everybody will show up to work because it is an all-inclusive environment, and especially for the person who is neurodivergent. One of the traits that I have as a person who has the diagnosis of ADHD as well as ASD or autism is my hyperfocus. Once I focus on a task, it's done.
If you were neurodiverse in your workplace and hesitant to talk to your manager about your needs, what's some advice you could offer to initiate this conversation with your co-workers and your manager?
Basically, there's a couple of steps with that advice. One is really get to know yourself as an individual. Like, think of your worst day that you may experience in your workplace first and write that down. Like, what is my worst day? If I get overwhelmed, if I get exhausted, am I likely to storm out of the workplace? Like, am I likely to sit in the corner and cry? Am I likely to just, complain to everybody and overshare? Like, what's the worst case that can happen? And then from there, you can say, what do I need to minimize that occurring in my job? So thinking about the job, thinking about the worst case scenario and bringing that together. And then as you bring that together, you can then say to your manager, so I'd start with the manager first and say, I'd just like to have a conversation with you about some of the things that I find challenging in the workplace that I would really like to minimize those challenges to make it so that I can come to work every day, enjoy it and do my best job. And having that positive approach of being the team player and wanting to make it work and knowing your worst case and explaining that the best way you can will make all the difference, because your manager is then potentially seeing it not so much as a challenge, but as something that, I want to work with that person. I want to help them to be part of the team and bring out their strengths, because when we bring out strengths in ourselves and each other, the workplace, for example, is such a better place. And really take your time then to have that conversation with the manager in a space that there's plenty of time. If you need to bring some evidence that helps back up your, with my dyslexia, I found that this works, so an app or something, and having the expectation of being heard, that you open communication around solving the challenge and and having the solution. Now, if you're still having trouble articulating your specific needs, then having a coach that can actually help you articulate that can be a great place. And then for it to ripple out into your co-workers, you then say to your manager, look, can we let people know that, when they're constantly calling me, it's actually quite triggering, or whatever it is, and then seeing how a team approach can happen.
That's such important information. Thanks, Jacqui. If you'd like to know more about the 3 fundamentals for creating a safe working environment for neurodiverse people and Jacqui Grant, please go to her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. And after the break, we have another interesting guest with another interesting topic.
Stay tuned. After the break, Lifestyle GP Dr. Avi Charlton will be talking about the health benefits of functional breathing. Welcome back. Our last guest today is Lifestyle GP Dr. Avi Charlton, and we will be talking about the health benefits of functional breathing. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me again, Stephanie.
Dr. Avi, what is functional breathing and what are the health benefits of it?
To understand functional breathing, we've got to understand dysfunctional breathing. Dysfunctional breathing means not breathing properly. What happens is if we don't breathe properly, we can get more anxious. We suffer from palpitations. And if we use our mouth to breathe a lot, then we yawn a lot and we feel like we need to take big breaths all the time. We feel like we're not getting enough air. We feel short of breath. What happens when people don't breathe properly is they might not sleep properly as well. Sometimes some people snore and then they use their mouth for breathing rather than the nose for breathing. Then they don't sleep well. They wake up not having enough energy and it becomes a vicious cycle. Then they don't breathe well during the day. They feel like they're short of breath. They feel anxious and they don't have enough energy to perform in the day-to-day activities. There's signs that can tell you that if you're not breathing properly, you might yawn, you might feel short of breath and you feel like you're gasping for air. Sometimes you get palpitations or even reflux.
How can our viewers use breathing to improve their health?
So there's a few little things and then there's a few breathing exercises that we can do. What we can do is we can practice breathing light, breathing slow and breathing deep. So I'll elaborate each tip. Breathing light means we don't take big, huge breaths all the time, and practicing breathing less amplitude breathing, light breathing. What that can do is that can tell your body to hold more carbon dioxide, and there's a little bit of science to it that it actually tells your oxygen to get into your body, the brain, the muscles more. So light breathing improves our carbon dioxide tolerance. Deep breathing means we practice breathing into the diaphragm. What we can do is we can practice getting our hands to feel our rib cage. If we breathe into our rib cage, our ribs will come out and then our belly will go out. As we breathe out, our rib cage will go in and our belly will go in. So we practice deep breathing into our diaphragm as feeling our rib cage go out. So there's breathing light, breathing deep, and breathing slow. So what we can do is we can practice slowing down our breathing. We can do breathing exercises that involve slowing down. If you're new to this, you can do counts, breathing in for 3 and out for 3, breathing exercises. Then if you get better at it, you can breathe in for 4, out for 4, or even in for 5, and building up to as long as you can, as you tolerate on breathing exercises. Then there's breath holding exercises that you can slowly incorporate into your life. There's a technique called box breathing. Box breathing means that you take a breath in for 4 counts, and then hold for 4 counts, and then out for 4 counts, and then hold again for 4 counts. And then if you can do 4 counts, you can increase it to 5 counts or even 6 counts. This technique is used by the Navy SEALs to slow down their anxiety, calm them down, and that can improve their mental health. That helps to improve our breathing and reduce anxiety, improve our well-being as well. Then there's lots of other breath holding exercises that we can practice. Let's say you're going out for a walk, you can do some breath holding. If you're new at it, you can hold, pinching your nose for 10 steps, and then you can release and walk 10 steps. Then you can repeat it again 5 or 6 times, doing breath holding exercises. As you get better, you can increase it to 15 steps or even 20 steps. Then that helps to tell our body that we can hold on to carbon dioxide more. Then your body can learn to tolerate higher carbon dioxides. That actually gets your body, your muscles, and your brain to have more oxygen delivered. That in turn improve your mental health, improve cognition, and you function better. The more we breathe through your nose, the more you breathe through your nose at night when you're sleeping as well. We also talk about using mouth tape to tape your mouth so you don't breathe through your mouth at night, especially for those who don't know if you're breathing through your mouth at night. And some people worry about that they will suffocate if they're breathing through, if they have their mouth taped. There are lots of different mouth tapes. Some of them have a little slit that doesn't cover their mouth, and that might help you to get used to a mouth tape and practice breathing more nose breathing. In turn, that can help with better sleep and better function during the day. With children, what happens if the children breathing through their mouth is they can get facial development problems. If they breathe through their mouth too much, the jaw development isn't quite right, and they can get facial development problems, receding jaws, and they're more likely to need orthodontic treatment, braces. So what parents can do is they can remind their children to breathe through their nose more often, all the time, and even at night they can mouth tape the kids. They might have to get used to it, and you can get special mouth tapes that has a slit in the middle. And there are exercises called buteyko exercises that their mothers can do games with the children, practice more nose breathing and even breath holding. What I suggest is people can seek help with professionals who are trained in breath work and breathing exercises, who talk about how to breathe functionally. So we can get the right guidance to talk about functional breathing, get the right exercises for breath work. In that way, you can get the right advice on how to breathe properly.
Great. I'm going to be checking my breath for the rest of the day.
That's great.
Thank you for that information.
Thank you, Stephanie.
If you would like to know more about functional breathing and Dr. Avi Charlton, please visit her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. That's all we have time for today. Goodbye until next week.
If you'd like to know more about our show, please like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.